Our next session and our next expert fits perfectly into this conversation. We are talking with Shane Svorec about accountability to never giving up on your purpose. Welcome, Shane.
Hello.
Hello,
How are you?
How are you? Good to see you.
Good. We are having some fun technical difficulties. Bear with me 1 second.
No worries. That's the story of our lives, right?
Oh my goodness. Yes. You just have to roll with stuff, right?
Exactly. Just keep flowing. All right. So everybody, I would like to introduce Shane to all of you. She's really amazing. So Shane is a lifelong writer, a perpetual peace seeker, and a believer of possibilities. She's the author of Broken Little Believer that just recently came out, and she lives on the East Coast with her family, her 2 dogs, and her chickens. Having traveled all over the country, Shane is part gypsy, part hippie, and part missionary all in one. Shane is a mental health advocate, crisis intervention worker, and a humanity builder. She loves the outdoors, she craves adventure, and she enjoys writing about all of the above. Finding beauty and simplicity and purpose is everything. And her belief and motto is all about personal accountability. If you don't take ownership of your mindset, someone else will. So that is a perfect segue from what we were just talking about, which is don't give up, right? And so I'm curious, when we're talking about this big subject, this big topic of purpose, right? It's very core, it's very deep to ourselves. What does accountability even mean there?
Well, I'll say accountability is really taking note of your feelings, your emotions, your actions, and being responsible for yourself. I think that in this day and age, especially, so many people, it's very easy to come up with excuses rather than to be accountable and responsible for ourselves. If we all looked inside instead of out and focused more on ourselves than what we are responsible for and what we're accountable for, things would move a lot smoother than they are right now. So I think being accountable, that's really what it means, is being in charge and being in control of yourself, worrying about what you are doing, not what everyone else is doing, but worrying about yourself.
That's pretty powerful. So I'm curious, this is a lot of wisdom and a lot of experience culminated all into this lesson that we're talking about right here. So what brought you, in your life as you were growing up? I know you have a pretty incredible story. What brought you to this topic specifically of accountability and Broken Little Believer, which is a big, expose of this topic?
Yeah. Well, I think, I listened a little bit to what Chris had to say, and I think that, a lot of our messages for those people who want to be successful, for those people who are searching for peace, for the people who are looking to really, truly fulfill their purpose, it all begins with self. It's not looking outside and pointing fingers, but it's looking at ourselves and focusing on the things that we ourselves can change. And so I think that when, you're asking about Broken Little Believer and with the world the way that it is right now, we need to take a step back and remind ourselves that we all have a responsibility and we are all accountable for how we behave, how we react, and how we treat other people. There are a lot of things that are going on in this world, and at times it feels like there's more problems and more challenges than there are solutions. But rather than getting caught up in everything that's going on in the world, because it's very easy for us to be distraught and discouraged by all of these things, it's really not about making excuses. It's about choosing to be an example. So, I grew up in a way where there were a lot of things that didn't go right for me. I had many reasons and I could have had and found many excuses to blame my present circumstances or my past circumstances. I could have listed things of why things didn't go right or why I wasn't successful. But instead, I think it's a lot more honorable to choose to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and prove people wrong. and to show that it is possible, because by doing that, you're encouraging other people that regardless of your circumstances, regardless of your past, regardless of, who you are born to, or what circumstances, situations you're born into, or what may happen to you in the world, we hold the power, we have the control to choose how we are going to behave and react to those circumstances. So,
Right.
yeah.
That's powerful. So I want to take a little step back then here, because we're talking about, this very big subject. So let's put some context in it. I'm curious, I know your book.
Yeah.
I actually started reading it, and I'm really excited to continue, because it is a story that's very near and dear to your own life experience, right? So
Yes.
what is Broken Little Believer about?
So Broken Little Believer is about a journey. And while it mirrors and follows a little girl, myself, through life, it's a lot about humanity. It's you go on this journey with a little girl, and you follow her throughout her life, things that have happened, places where she's lived, people that she's met, good and bad. And you see how those experiences can very easily shape someone, and things could have very easily gone wrong. But you see through faith, you see through believing in greater possibilities, you see in her wonder and in her willingness and wanting to hope for a better world, in this optimism, that she refused to be broken. There were broken pieces all around her, and there were things that happened to her, but she refused to allow that to define her. And so Broken Little Believer is something that it's a book that, while readers can't maybe identify with every subject or every experience in the book, there's something in the book that everyone can relate to. Whether it's, the heartache of losing someone, whether it's, divorce and family, whether it's bullying, whether it's not fitting in, experiencing things within humanity, racial tension, widespread illness, pandemics. It doesn't touch on anything that is controversial, but the undertones of the message, everyone can get it. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what's going on. It doesn't matter what side you're on. If we're picking sides, it's about all of us working together to make a better world, to make a better place, to make other people happier rather than causing harm to people. So the book is really about humanity, and it's about overcoming, and it's about resilience.
Yeah, those are some pretty important things as we're stepping through, what we're wanting when we're talking about purpose, right? And we're wanting to live in a world where we're actually excited to turn on the news, or we're excited to hand off our systems, our social societies to our next generation, right? We're maybe far off, or not too far off from that, right? I mean, it's a tricky world to live in. And so as we're talking about resilience specifically, and you show this really well throughout your book, it's about a little girl who's living in a van, right? And she's, kind of very mobile, moving around the country and being put in all these different situations again and again and again, in the context of, some really hard situations around her. Mm-hmm. So what is the key to resilience? I mean, this is a really beautiful story to expose what that is. So what is that?
Well, I think, resilience, and behind resilience is a willingness to be flexible. It's a willingness to understand the importance of adaptability. And I think, living all over the country, living in the back of a Volkswagen bus and traveling like a gypsy and living like a missionary, I had a very frugal is probably an overstatement, but, we didn't want for anything. We had the bare necessities, but that was it. So I think coming from a place where everything was special, the world was special, the world was just waiting to be discovered, rather than sitting in the back of a Volkswagen bus and feeling as though I was missing things. I felt like it was the greatest gift to be able to travel the country and to meet so many different people from so many different walks of life, to go to different churches, synagogues, you, you, you know, uh, to just be exposed to so much culture and the beauty within our differences. So yes, while there were some very unfortunate and painful and hard things that happened, I think looking and forcing oneself to look for the silver linings and the beauty and the lessons within the pain is really what makes your life fulfilling. And that's what, growing is not always pretty. And going through life is not a straight line. It's not, we start here and we end here. It's very zigzag, and there's detours, and there's, the Volkswagen bus would break down and we wouldn't have gas, and we thought we were going to hit this destination and we never made it there. But there was a reason why we didn't make it there. We ended up somewhere where we were meant to be. We were supposed to be there. We engaged with people that we were supposed to engage with. There are people that I still keep in touch with from years ago, from all across the country, and it was meant to be, because I believe there are no coincidences. So
yeah, this is it's amazing you're saying this, because in the last two interviews, this topic has kind of come up in different words every time as we're talking about purpose. Rajni was saying it's about allowing, right? Allowing what's coming to you to happen. And Chris was really saying, trust the process, right? Trust that everything's working out. And so I'm curious, when you get stuck, when you get to those moments where you stop trusting the process, how do you go back into that? What's that shift?
So the shift for me, and this is, I actually just spoke about this not too long ago. I speak about this often because I believe it to my very core. But I think one of the hardest things for people to do is to be alone. We're built to connect with other people. We're built to form relationships and to have partnerships. We are created for that reason. And although now, there's so many people who are in isolation because of everything that's happening in this world, and people are struggling because of it. But part of this resilience and how we make that shift when things don't go right is to kind of come back into ourselves and not be afraid to be alone, to sit in the silence and the quiet of our minds, because sometimes that's a scary place. We're thinking of the past, we are worried about the future, our minds are just racing. And when we're under stress and we're dealing with things that are beyond our control, and there are so many things that are beyond our control, being alone and being quiet with our thoughts and our minds can sometimes be a scary place and a scary thing to do. But it is a critical exercise to truly be in tune with yourself, what your needs are, what your wants and wishes are, and also to understand what your limitations are. So,
Right.
We're not always going to, our to-do list. We all have these to-do lists, but things on that to-do list may not get done. They may not get done the way we want them to get done. And just like this journey, it doesn't unfold the way we always think it's going to unfold, but making the best of it is what it's all about. I often use an analogy, if you ever go to an amusement park and you're waiting to go on a roller coaster or, some great ride, the line that you're waiting in could be hours long, and you're waiting and waiting and waiting, and that anticipation. And then if you're nervous about this big ride because it's got loops and it's got this big hill, and you're like, then your stomach's kind of bothering you, and you're like, oh, you're anxious, you're excited, you're all these things. The ride is over like that. You've spent hours online waiting for the ride, and the ride is over like that. So I always look at life like that. Instead of, that downtime that we're just sitting and waiting and anxiously imagining what things are going to be like, you have to make the best of those chunks of time, not just wait for the ride, we have to use the time that we're waiting for the ride to really maximize our life, because that's the biggest chunk of our life, is all that waiting and just that in-between time.
That's a really cool metaphor. It's because it's so true. We're looking forward to that big job we're going to get, or that big, break in our life, or that big house that we'll own one day. And so that waiting part is really about, that's a huge part of the living. So I'm curious, what do you do in that waiting period that makes it, how do you make that really enjoyable? How do you make that part of the process also really serve you?
Yeah. So I do spend, I love to get together with, friends, and I'm very active, and I love being outdoors with my family and spending time with, our pets. But I also make it a daily practice to spend time alone, because that time alone is where I do my digging. And it's, some days it's very enjoyable and it's very easy, and I think, oh, everything's going great, and yay, it's it's a lot of excitement. But some days, especially right now, when people are under stress, and there's more bad news on the TV than there is good, and there are there are, instead of catching acts of kindness, we're viewing catastrophes, and we're viewing so much emotional charged energy that is just dragging us down. And if we watch it for too long, or if we get too close to it, it could just sap us and take our energy, and we forget our purpose. We forget that we are in control. We become vulnerable, and we fall into this path or trap of just kind of getting sucked away, like a wave that just comes over us, and we kind of wash out and wash in, instead of taking charge, planting our feet in the ground. So spending that time alone and reminding ourselves what our purpose is, what we want out of life, what can we control. We can't control the past. We can't change the past. And there's so many things in the present that are beyond our control. There's bad things that happen to us. We get bad phone calls. We experience grief and loss, and people are anxious and depressed, and there's so much going on. But what can we control? What can we focus on? What can we change? What can we influence? What can we get involved in? How do we change our vision and our viewpoint so that we are encouraged, so that we are filled up, so that we are encouraging other people, so that we show up and we're a beacon of light versus another dark cloud that's floating out there in this world right now. Yeah. So taking that time and being alone, that's how I survive, and that's how I thrive, is giving myself that time to be honest with myself, and honest with how I feel. And because we're not honest with ourselves, then we're not being genuine humans, and we're not being genuine in our interactions and how we go through life. And while routine is very, very helpful, if we go through life in this routine, day in and day out and day in and day out, we lose touch with ourselves, and we lose touch with our real passion.
Right. Yeah, I love how you're pivoting the question, right? When we get lost, you're saying, okay, what do I have control over? Where can I take a step right now? Right? I feel like crap, my energy is low. Where can I take just one step right now?
Yes.
And it's really about what Chris was mentioning earlier, and what you're honing in on is taking action. Accountability is about staying in action and looking at what you can control. So I'm curious, and this is kind of our big topic here, is how can someone who doesn't have much experience with understanding mindset, right, and how their mindset works, how can someone start to take ownership of their own mindset?
Well, I think one of the important things, and I always think about our younger generations, because so many of our, so many of our younger people right now are living in a time that is very unusual. And I can't help but, if adults at times are feeling hopeless and helpless, how must our young people feel? So how do people go about, how do they go about finding this hope again, and how do we regenerate this, that piece of humanity that I feel like so many people are clinging to, but it's being threatened. It's being threatened right now. But I think for our young people and for all of us is that we need to look up. And for those who are watching, who are connected to me, they know that I'm also known as the Lookup Girl. And I tell you, when we are walking around with our heads down, we miss so much that's happening around us. We miss so much of the beauty. We miss the eye contact with people. We miss simple engagements with others that could change things. And we spend so much time on all of these things looking down, that we have forgotten to look up and remember the possibilities that exist within us and all around us. So I would suggest that people find a mentor, a positive mentor. There are plenty of people out there that have great attitudes, and really crummy things have happened to them, but they seem to always try to make a smile appear on their faces and on other people's faces. It's hard work. It's not easy. It's easier to be miserable, angry, and resentful and bitter, and it's easy to do all that stuff because everybody else is. But
right.
we need to find those people who are trying their best to be positive, who are still out there believing that the world is a good place, there is goodness that exists, and we just have to uncover that. We just have to uncover it. And then we also have to show other people the goodness that exists and the positivity that's still out there, and show the world that, look up. Look at the sky, look at the stars, look at the moon, look at how beautiful this world is.
I love this metaphor on so many levels, because you're exactly right. It's about looking up. Have you seen, and shout out to the Netflix series or movie that just came out with Leonardo DiCaprio and Jennifer Lawrence?
No.
Oh, you haven't seen? Okay, your metaphor, this is so funny, is a perfect, for anybody who hasn't seen it, and Shane, you have to go watch it like ASAP.
Yes.
It's basically like there's this meteorite that's heading towards Earth, and it's almost 100% accuracy that it's going to hit Earth, and if they don't do something to move it away, it's going to kill everybody on it.
Oh my God.
And meanwhile, you have this whole campaign. The president of the United States doesn't want anybody to look up, so she starts a campaign, Don't Look Up. And there's a lot of parallels of the scientists fighting these very polarized movements,
right,
to just look up and see what's really going on in the world. And so it's funny that you haven't even heard of this, because it's very relevant. Yeah, go watch this. It's a lot of big stars, Meryl Streep. And so does anybody else here type in the chat if you've seen Don't Look Up? I'm curious, because it's exactly what you're saying, just with a different metaphor. Yeah, we've got a couple of people. It's a really good movie. So
oh my God, well, now I have to watch it. But that's so funny, because that's what I have a website, and people follow me as the Lookup Girl, and that was kind of where a lot of my writing I initially shared before I started writing books, the Lookup Girl. And yeah, it's just, when you take a step back and in your quiet moment, look up at the sky, whether it's during the day or at night, and you see the magnitude of the universe and how tiny we are, but yet how powerful and significant we are, and what we can do. Just a tiny little one person what we can do. So it's just pretty amazing. So, well, now I have a movie to watch.
Yeah, exactly. I see in the chat somebody says it's the greatest satire they've ever seen and very symbolic. So they highly recommend it.
Great.
Yeah, it's wonderful. So now kind of finishing up.
Yes.
I'm really curious, as we're talking about accountability and owning your own mindset against, not even against, but amidst everything going on around us in the world, because there is, like you said, so much we can't control. What is a call to action that we can challenge the audience to do right now, whether they've found their purpose or they're pioneering it, or they're just continuing to expand their life in some way? What is a call to action to continue moving forward as we want to make our impact in this world?
Well, I would say that the first thing would be to tune in to yourself and to tune out all of the noise. We, there is a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of negative vibrations. We need to tune in to ourselves and not get sucked into the noise, the negative noise that's in the world. So that's first and foremost, that if we want to hold on and be firm in our convictions, our commitments, and our purpose, that we need to turn off some of the news, stop looking at all of the the papers that just make you feel really, really, really bad, and start getting back into your spirit and your heart and your visions and beliefs, and not let yourself be so vulnerable and influenced by outside and exterior energy, motivations, opinions. Stand firm in what you believe and don't get sucked into all of the other. So tune in and tune out. That's what I would say.
That's really good. So turn off the news, stop reading the newspaper, and then pivot towards sources and communities that are really supporting you with where you are.
Yeah, I mean, we need to get back to, outside of this, because we know we're all over the country, we're all over in different continents, that we have to do this. But when we can, we need to get back to face-to-face conversations. We need to start looking at people in the eyes and truly listening and hearing people. And that alone changes everything. When you really can feel someone, their passion and their true care for you or for a cause, that's really what we need to get back to, and not forget the importance of just humanity and how we treat and value each other. That alone just can change the world. It changes people's behaviors and how we interact with one another. So
yeah, it's amazing. I wish this could be, expanded to as a message. This should be the news, honestly. So just wrapping up here, what is it that you have today to share with our audience to move them forward in this journey of exploration of their purpose and what they want to do in this world?
Well, on my website, on brokenlittlebeliever.com, you can go there and you can get a free Living with Purpose resource. So it's got some great tips and pointers for people. You can implement them every day, beginning today. They're very easy, but things that make you more conscious of your actions, rather than just going through life in these routines or lack of routine. Right now everything is kind of up in the air, but I think just being more aware of our feelings and of what we're doing, and being more conscious of the things that we're doing. So this Living with Purpose resource is on my website, and then take a look at my book. So
we dropped the link in the chat for both of those.
So Broken Little Believer, Finding Purpose in All the Broken Little Pieces, or All the Broken Pretty Pieces. This is, it's a book that so many people, I think, you will root for the underdog, and the underdog may be you. And it gives people hope. It reminds people that it doesn't matter where you came from or where you're going. It matters what you're doing right now and how you're using your time, how you're engaging with other people. If you're making a difference, or other people, what imprint are you leaving on the world, and what impression are you leaving with people? So it's a book that it is a journey. It'll take you away from this world right now. You'll get into a Volkswagen bus, and you may not be able to travel right now because of restrictions, but you can travel in this book, and you can travel all over the country, and see different places and meet different people and experience different things. And remember that at the core, we're all just surviving. We're all really just trying to get through this life. And we really need to make a conscious decision to not just get through life, but to get through it with purpose, with meaning, and with fulfillment and passion. And along the way, those people that we meet, and the passengers that get in the bus, and the people that we meet at rest stops, and you name it, it's not an accident. And what we do with these encounters that we have with other people really is what makes our life fulfilling and worth living.
Yeah, that's powerful. I have to say that I've started it. I'm really excited to finish it, because from what I've noticed already, it's really about looking at the uncomfortable experiences in our life and using them as opportunities, which is a pretty big thought pivot. So I really want to thank you for creating this beautiful piece of work about travel and adventure and being a nomad, in so many different ways. It's very metaphorical, right? And so thank you for creating this and sharing this with the world. And thank you for taking your time to jump on here and have this wonderful conversation today, Shane. It's been so lovely. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Taylor. You're doing such great things. And I love your commitment and your conviction to making things better and reaching people who really need, some empathy and compassion in this world. And that's what it's all about. So I really appreciate your invitation, and it was an honor to be part of the summit. And I wish all of the speakers.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll be in touch soon, definitely. I really look forward to finishing the book, so I'll let you know. All right. And make sure you guys all get the book in the chat here, especially for my nomad friends. Yeah. Okay. All right. Bye, Shane. Have a lovely day.